shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism.
Believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well.
But that's not, it doesn't say, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not what stat are you talking about?
The moment Bill Maher opened his mouth, the whole panel on The View practically short-circuited. One blunt reality check about the left's addiction to identity politics, and suddenly it looked like someone hit the panic button. Sunny Hostin launched into one of her trademark meltdowns, firing back at anyone who dared disagree, while Whoopi tried to play referee before the whole thing spiraled into chaos. You could feel the tension through the screen. The election spin machine stalled right there on live TV. This wasn't a discussion, it was a televised political pile-up in slow motion, and Maher was the spark that blew the whole thing wide open. Buckle up. That wasn't just a segment, it was a warning shot. Daytime TV just entered demolition mode.
Okay, and finally, Hillel, someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying that Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it. Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class? I mean, again, I got my popcorn. I don't know why people did what they did. I see all these reasons, and so, okay, time will tell. But what do y'all...
Let's cut the fluff. Maher wasn't wrong. The left keeps pointing fingers at identity politics backlash every time they lose. Meanwhile, they're the ones injecting it into every political conversation like it's oxygen. And when it backfires, suddenly, it's Republicans who somehow made it a weapon. Pick a story and stick to it. Even if you give Whoopi and Sunny every ounce of benefit of the doubt, pretending Kamala Harris has some hidden master plan somewhere, the reality is simple: voters didn't see results. Same with Biden. Lots of speeches, minimal impact. They already had power. They already had time. And they still act like they're outsiders trying to break in. Why should voters hand them the keys again when they already crashed the car?
I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends. But it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And, the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for Kamala Harris. It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that is not true. This is by education. Those who attended college voted for her at a higher degree than those that didn't. And I've said that. Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so much backlash because I think it's an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth.
Here's the truth nobody on that panel wanted to hear. The identity argument collapses the second you look at actual numbers. Biden outperformed Harris in 2020. That alone destroys the idea that race or gender is the issue. This is about results, not slogans. Voters don't want symbolic leaders. They want competent ones. People aren't choosing hashtags. They're reacting to skyrocketing grocery bills and a border crisis they can literally see. Ignore that long enough, and your base won't revolt. They'll just quietly disappear.
They felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family. And whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans, they thought that he was reflective.
One of the poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had historically. I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny,
I didn't
you're
say the
missing
vast-
it. Most of my family, a lot of my family doesn't have college
but
degrees.
the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say,
Yeah,
I voted for Donald Trump because of racism.
That's
Not, let me get that. What stat are you talking about? Yes, you can.
Hold on. Calm down, everybody. Just take a breath. Take a breath.
But The View keeps hitting replay on the same script. Sunny Hostin clings to the sexism and misogyny explanation like it's the only note on her sheet. Meanwhile, real-world voters are shouting about crime, inflation, and immigration, and Democratic strategists are busy policing pronouns and vibes. They didn't lose because America turned cruel overnight. They lost because they stopped listening to people living outside TV studios and college campuses. Elections aren't won on grievance theater. They're won on direction and clarity. And right now, the message from the left is about as clear as a mumbling Biden soundbite.
That folks see everything through the lens of racism and sexism. Not everything. But if you're not seeing racism and sexism in America, then you need to clean your lenses.
Yeah.
Because, this is something that I also find interesting, that when Democrats and liberals talk about race or sexism, it's immediately labeled as identity politics, which has a negative connotation. It's a term that Republicans have coined, and it's been very effective. But when Donald Trump goes to Miami and talks to Cubans, that's not identity politics. When Donald Trump goes to Dearborn, Michigan and promises Arabs something, that's not identity politics. When he goes to Jews and promises them the opposite.
Republicans, on the other hand, are doing something shockingly basic: showing up, speaking directly, and listening. Trump figured out early that plain language beats curated talking points every time. Compare that to Harris' public messaging, which feels like a never-ending corporate training video crossed with influencer-style optimism and no substance. The left's outrage at Maher wasn't shock, it was fear. Not fear that he was wrong, but fear that he said what millions quietly believe. Instead of asking why people are tuning out, they attack the person who says it out loud. So here's the question. Was Maher simply speaking the truth that everyone else tiptoes around, or just stirring the pot? Drop your take below, smash the like button, and hit subscribe for straight talk political breakdowns without the spin. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.